She's crawling again. That's what everyone whispered when they saw Paisley Hartwell on the floor of Rosewood Diner. Third time this week. The young waitress, with a gentle smile, was down on her hands and knees, inching toward a small boy who sat motionless on the checkered tiles. James Blackwood watched from his corner booth, his coffee growing cold. His 3-year-old son, Mason, had slipped away again, something that happened more and more since the tragedy 3 months ago. But this time was different. This time, someone cared enough to get down to his level. "Hey there, little explorer," Paisley whispered, settling beside Mason on the floor. Her uniform would need washing later, but she didn't seem to mind. "What are you looking for down here?" Mason clutched his small toy car tightly, his eyes distant. He hadn't spoken properly since the car accident that took his mother, Rachel. The doctors called it selective mutism, trauma response, they said. Time would heal, they promised. But time felt frozen. "Sir." Another waitress, Brooklyn, approached James's table nervously. Should I ask Paisley to stop? Some customers are complaining about the crawling." James studied the scene. His son, the heir to a billion-dollar empire, sitting on a diner floor, while a waitress in worn sneakers spoke to him like he mattered. Like he was worth getting dirty for. "No," James said quietly. "Leave them be." He'd been coming to this small-town diner for weeks now, ever since fleeing the city mansion that held too many memories. Rosewood, Montana, wasn't on any billionaire's travel list, but it was where Rachel had grown up, where she'd worked summers during college, where she'd been happy. Paisley was different from the other staff. While Brooklyn and the cook, Rusty, treated James with nervous deference, recognizing his expensive clothes and confident demeanor, Paisley barely glanced his way. She was always focused on Mason, as if sensing the boy's silent pain. "Your car looks lonely," Paisley murmured to Mason now, still sitting cross-legged on the floor. "Does it have a name?" Mason's fingers tightened around the red toy, but his lips moved slightly. A whisper, so soft James had to strain to hear it. "Lightning." The first word his son had spoken in public since the accident. James felt his chest tighten. He watched as Paisley's face lit up, not with the forced enthusiasm adults often showed children, but with genuine joy. "Lightning," she repeated solemnly. "That's a perfect name. Lightning must be very fast." "He misses Mama," Mason whispered, his voice breaking James's heart into smaller pieces. Paisley nodded seriously, as if this was the most important conversation in the world. Sometimes, when we miss someone very much, sitting close to the ground helps. It makes us feel safe. Your lightning probably feels safe with you. James watched his son lean slightly toward this stranger, who understood him better than dozens of expensive therapists had. "Paisley," Brooklyn hissed from across the diner. "Table 6 is waiting." But Paisley didn't move. She stayed on that floor, creating a small world where a grieving boy felt heard. "I have to go help other people now," she told Mason gently. "But lightning and you can stay right here, as long as you need to, okay? Sometimes the floor is exactly where we're supposed to be." As she stood, brushing off her knees, James caught her eye for the first time. "Thank you," he said simply. Paisley smiled, not the practiced smile of someone hoping for a good tip, but something real. "He's a special little guy. You're lucky." Lucky. James almost laughed at the irony. But watching Mason carefully place lightning on the floor and whisper to his toy, he realized maybe he was. That night, after Mason fell asleep in their motel room, James made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, he returned to the diner early. Paisley was setting up tables, moving with practiced efficiency, despite her young age. Maybe 25, James guessed. "We need to talk," he said, sliding into a booth. She looked up, curious but not intimidated. "Is this about yesterday? Because I know some customers didn't like." "I'm James Blackwood," he interrupted. "Blackwood Industries." Her expression didn't change. No recognition. No sudden deference. "Okay," she said simply. "Nice to meet you, James." He stared at her. You don't know who I am. Should I? Paisley tilted her head. Are you famous or something? For the first time in months, James genuinely smiled. In a world where everyone knew his net worth before his first name, here was someone who saw him as simply Mason's father. I own companies, he said carefully. A lot of them. I'm wealthy. Good for you, Paisley said, not unkindly. Is Mason okay? He seemed sad yesterday. The directness caught James off guard. No one asked about Mason anymore. They asked about business deals, stock prices, merger opportunities, but never about his son. His mother died 3 months ago, James found himself saying. Car accident. I don't know how to help him. Paisley sat down across from him, her expression softening. That's devastating. I'm so sorry. You got on the floor with him, James said. No one does that. Not anymore. Of course I did. That's where he was. Such simple logic, such human decency. I want to offer you a job, James said impulsively. Mason's nanny. We'll pay you whatever you're worth. More. Paisley studied his face carefully. What happened to his last nanny? We've had 7 in 3 months. None lasted more than 2 weeks. Because. James hesitated. Mason doesn't connect with people easily now. And I'm not. I'm not good at this parenting thing without Rachel. You seemed pretty good to me yesterday. You let him sit on the floor when he needed to. That matters. The observation stunned him. In his world of board meetings and profit margins, he'd forgotten that sometimes the simplest acts were the most meaningful. So, he pressed. The job. Paisley was quiet for a long moment. Then, why me? Because you crawled, James said honestly. Because you didn't see a disruption or a problem child. You saw a little boy who needed someone to meet him where he was. She smiled that genuine smile again. I can't take your money, James. But I can be Mason's friend, if you'll let me. 2 weeks later, James made another decision that shocked his board of directors. He bought the failing Rosewood Diner and the building it sat in, not as an investment, but as a gift to the town that had welcomed his broken family. But more importantly, he learned to get on the floor. Every evening, he'd sit beside Mason on those checkered tiles, talking about lightning and mama and all the big feelings that seemed too heavy for small shoulders. Paisley would join them sometimes, after her shift, creating a circle of understanding on that worn linoleum. Mason began speaking more, smiling occasionally, playing with other children at the local park. And James began remembering that love isn't about providing everything money can buy. Sometimes, it's about getting down to someone's level and staying there until they're ready to stand again. On Mason's 4th birthday, held at the diner, with half the town in attendance, the boy tugged on his father's expensive jacket. Daddy, he whispered, can we sit on the floor and talk to lightning, like Paisley taught us? James looked around at the celebration, at Paisley laughing with the other townspeople, at his son's bright eyes, at the community that had embraced them both. Absolutely, buddy, he said, getting down on his knees. Sometimes the floor is exactly where we need to be. And for the first time since Rachel's death, James felt like he was exactly where he belonged.